Hello, Power Up with Pride. I am ShadowWalker227, and today I'm submitting to you a submission video for the Final Fantasy I Randomizer. This is going to be the first of 3 submission videos that I submit. They're going to show off different game modes that are available from the randomizer, and this first one that we're going to be doing is a light entrance shuffle. So, this is going to follow the same basic structure of the game. For those of you not familiar with Final Fantasy I, we are a group of light warriors who are tasked with going and relighting the power of the orbs. So we're going to have to kill 4 different fiends, and that is going to allow us to confront the final dungeon and go back in time and defeat chaos in the past. And if that timeline doesn't necessarily make sense, or storyline doesn't make sense, it's just a video game, and you know, this is how Final Fantasy all got started. So it's a bit old, but it's fun. It's a great game, and the randomizer brings a lot of new life into the game. So I think it's a great video to show off, and a great game to play and have fun. And I hope that you enjoy it. So without further ado, we're going to start in 3, 2, 1, go. Now, this is normally a castle. This is Castle Corneria. What I meant by entrance shuffle is when I go into different locations, they are not necessarily going to be what was there in the vanilla game. In this, the towns are going to be normal, so there's always the Corneria town, and this is Corneria. So we're going to have access to our level 1 spells, and be able to get ourselves a spell book that gets us started. So we've got Fast, Fire 3, Stun, Sleep. Fast is a combat buff, Fire 3 is an AoE damage spell, Stun disables an enemy, it paralyzes them, and Sleep is an area of effect spell that inflicts the sleep status, which loses the afflicted character a round in combat. White magic, we've got Alit, which protects the party against lightning damage, Lamp cures the blind status, Pure cures the poison status, and Harm does area of effect damage to undead. So not particularly good spells for white magic, but black magic is good. We're going to have a lot of firepower early on in the game. The party composition that I took is a fighter, a red mage, a white mage, and a black mage. What that's going to allow me to do is have a good variety of magic spells, both offensive and healing and buffs. The the fighter is going to serve as our primary tank. He's going to soak up a lot of hits, as well as be our primary melee damage dealer. Red mage is able to cast both white magic and black magic spells, and white mage can only cast healing, buff, and anti-undead spells. And the black mage is going to be our primary offensive user. Okay, so in our first item shop, we see the floater. That is one of our incentive items. So an incentive item in Final Fantasy Randomizer is one of the key items placed into the pool to randomize. And what I mean by that is there are a number of items that are going to allow us to progress through the game. Floater being one of them. There's also the Mystic Key, some items that let us get through dungeons, an item that lets us promote our characters. And we'll explain more about that as we go along. But that floater is very big. The floater allows you to retrieve the airship from the Ryukon Desert. And the airship is going to let us fly around the world. So we want that. It's a very good item. So we are going to be trying to save up some money and get that as soon as possible. These imps are a very basic enemy. They're not going to do a whole lot of damage to us. We're going to take this fight just to get some experience points under our belt, get our characters leveled up to level 2. That'll give us some more HP, some more spell charges for our mages, allow us to run from battle better. So gaining levels is going to be a primary source of progression as we're going through this. So I'm not really interested in taking the second fight. I don't particularly need it. So we're going to head on up to what is normally the Temple of Fiends, and we're going to see what is our entrance there, and see if it's something that can get us a little bit of progression. Okay, so in this case we've got Castle Ordeals. That's a very interesting option. And at level 2, I'm not feeling particularly confident in my ability to take out castle ordeals, but that's something we're going to want to come back to. So I'm just taking down some quick notes, telling myself that I need to come back here later. So knowing that that is castle ordeals, that really encourages me to want to head west to the town of Provoca. That it's going to let me pick up some level 2 spells, as well as fight Bicky and his crew of pirates. They have another of our incentive items. So that should be a key item that will let us progress through the game, or a very good piece of equipment. And prioritizing incentives is going to be how we get through the game more quickly. We're going to need a couple of different key items to progress through some dungeons. There are some specific points, like there's a rod that eliminates a block in one of the dungeons, and there is a cube that is going to allow us to progress through the Mirage Tower into the Sky Castle. So a couple of those are going to be required to beat the game. A couple of them are useful for being able to travel around the world, like that airship that's going to let us fly, which is going to give us access to a lot of the world. So we're going to check our level 2 spells. And we don't have a whole lot of magic, but we do have enough. So we're going to pick up Bane. Bane is an AoE instant death spell. It's very good. The other spells here weren't particularly good. Slow and Slow 2 reduce the enemy's number of hits in battle, and Lock 2 reduces an enemy's evasion. In high stat scaling, the evasion reduction can be a very strong ability for Lock 2. However, in this particular flag set, the enemy's stats aren't scaled particularly crazy, so I won't really be needing it to ensure that I'm able to hit some of the endgame bosses. So we're going to save real quick just to restore spell charges and our hit points before we fight Bicky and his crew. And Fire 3 is going to make very short work of these pirates. Pirates normally have 6 HP, and our enemy stat scaling is 50% to 200%. So that HP could be half as little, so lower ends of 3, or twice as many, upper ends of 12. And Fire 3 does significantly more damage than that. So there we've got a ship. So that's going to let us sail the ocean. So that's a very nice pickup. I would like to buy some houses. Unfortunately, I'm very limited on money. And it is more important right now that I pick up the exit spell. The exit spell is going to allow us to escape from a dungeon instantaneously. So I talked about black magic at level 2. Haven't really talked about white magic. The wall spell gives the character resistance against all enemies. Harm 2 does damage to undead more than Harm 1. Exfer removes an enemy's resistances, so kind of the opposite of wall. And exit is, as mentioned, going to allow us to escape from dungeons faster. So we now have the ship, so we're able to sail around and travel a little bit more quickly than if we were just walking around. That's definitely a very nice pickup. I should also stop by Matoya's Cave and see what is up here. That's an entrance that won't take us long to check. Okay. Well, these guys are unrunnable, so I'm going to have to take them. So we're going to throw out some Bane spells, try and kill these sharks as fast as possible. And we get 1 poison smoke. Only 1 poison smoke, so we'll try it again. There we go. Poison smoke terminated. Those sharks are dead. We're level 5 now. I'm feeling a lot better about our option of being able to go over to Castle Ordeals. So we're going to check what is at Matoya's Cave. And Matoya's Cave is guarded by an ogre. It's Dwarf Cave. So there's a couple of chests here. So the silver helmet, or the silver shield is nice. It's going to give our fighter some more armor, soak up those hits better. And the heal helm is a nice option to be able to restore HP in the middle of battle. When you use the heal helm, it casts the heal spell, and that does a little bit of healing. It's somewhere in the range of like 10 to 30 hit points per character that it targets. So not a lot, but enough to be useful and keep the party sustained a little bit. So now we're going to go ahead and try to do the castle ordeals. I am fairly low level, but with Fire 3, that's going to be able to take out a lot of the dangerous enemies that we run across. And Castle Ordeals isn't a particularly long dungeon. It does also have one of our incentive items, so we're going to pick up another key item or strong piece of equipment. So here is Castle Ordeals. It has these pillars. Every time you touch a pillar, it teleports you around, and they're arranged in a maze pattern. So you have to figure out your way through this maze. So down, up, down, up, down, it looks like. As that one warped us backwards, we know it was the wrong way. So down, up, down, and then there's 4 on this level. Did we get lucky with the first one? I think we did. And we are through the pillar maze. That was very good. Very quick time. Alright, these nightmares can be kind of scary. I don't want to really fight them at this level. They're going to do a lot of damage to me, as they've just eliminated my tank. But we do get to escape from battle. So some cash is good. We want to be able to buy that floater as soon as possible, so the money that we're picking up here is very valuable. A house is really nice. That's going to let us restore our spell charges outside of this dungeon. And our key item is the crown. Okay. The crown allows us to go trade that into Astos, and he will have another of our incentive items for us once we hand him that crown. And we have a good number of charges of Fire 3, so we're going to try and fight these zombie dragons. They're a pretty good source of experience points, and they hurt a lot, so we're not going to be fighting these zombie dragons. Alright, we got one of them. Boy, I'd really like to be able to fight more. That is too dangerous, though. Despite being worth a lot of experience points, that 100 points of damage is too high. I cannot afford to lose my characters at this point in the game. I don't want to have to reset and do it again, so we're going to move on. So Fire 3 is going to do a great job of carrying us through a lot of this early game. It does a really good amount of damage compared to the enemies that we're fighting. Once we start diving some more difficult dungeons, that will not be the case. We'll have to get some other spells to rely on. But hopefully we will find some good options. We are going to go ahead and stop and pick up that floater while we're here. And we're going to pick up some more heal potions. Did I buy any softs? I did. I bought 10. Okay, perfect. So, softs are useful because they restore the petrification status. They're one of only 2 ways in the game to actually cure that status, and any character that's petrified is not able to participate in battle. So we definitely don't want that to happen to our characters. Alright, so we're going to get our next town here. This is Elfland. It has level 3 spells and level 4 spells for us. I don't really know why I'm checking the weapon shop. There's not going to be anything there that I really want to pick up. So level 3 magic. Temper increases a character's offensive attack. Confuse confuses the enemy and causes them to damage themselves. Ice 3 is the best elemental magic in the game. It does ice damage to all enemies, and it does a lot of it. And Lit does single target lightning damage. So Lit is not going to be a very good spell for us, but Temper and Ice 3 we definitely want to pick up. And here we have level 3 Fade. Fade is the best white magic offensive ability in the game. It does 80 to 320 damage to all enemies, so a very strong spell. And Cure 4 allows the white mage to fully heal any character that she casts that on. So very strong pickups for level 3 magic here. I'm going to check our armor shop. About the only thing I'm really looking for in the armor shop at this point is Pro Rings. Pro Rings are an accessory that every character can equip that adds 8 Absorb and provides protection against the Death Element status. Obviously, Death Element has a lot of instant death spells, and therefore it's a nice thing to be able to protect yourself against. So level 4 is good. We've got Warp, we've got Lit 3, so we have all of our elemental magics available to us fairly early, so that's pretty nice. We're going to go ahead and check this entrance, and we find the Earth Cave. Earth Cave is interesting. I'm not particularly looking to do the Earth Cave just yet. It requires a rod key item in order to complete the dungeon, but we're going to mark that down on our tracker and come back for it later. At any point that I can, I want to do a dungeon all at once rather than having to come back for it later, which is the reason that I want to put off the Earth Cave. Even though there is technically an incentive item I could go fetch out of that Earth Cave that does not require the rod to get to. So, just trying to get through some of these annoying fights that are in my way. They're not going to give enough experience points to really be worth taking them, so just trying to run, and of course we're attacked by some arachnids, which are unrunnable. That's why my run command changed to wait. In the randomizer, that is actually changed. In the vanilla game, if a fight is unrunnable, you don't actually know that it's unrunnable. You kind of have to get through there through trial and error and doing a little bit of experimentation. However, our devs were nice enough to give us the ability to know that a fight was unrunnable, so we will always have that heads up for us. Now, even though Ogres and Gar-Ogres aren't particularly good by themselves, a pack of 3 of them is worth enough experience points for me to spend a Fire 2 or a Fire 3 or 2 on this pack. And they really just don't want to die, do they? What a nuisance. Alright, fine. I'll throw out more magic. Not even enough for a level. That's sad. Okay. So, Northwest Castle is Sea Shrine. So Sea Shrine is a late game dungeon, and I'm trying to consider my options here and see if I want to brave it for some experience points. There are a lot of fights here that are going to be worth very good experience and get my party a lot of level ups very quickly. So we're going to try and get through this Gershark with Bane. It doesn't look like he wants to die to the instant death, so we'll throw out a couple of Fade charges and try and kill him that way. So Fade, being the strongest AoE spell in the game for white magic, is going to let me take a lot of fights that I wouldn't necessarily normally be able to take. Although it looks like this Gershark has a lot of hit points, so I'm not particularly interested in fighting more Gersharks. That was a lot more resources than I really wanted to spend there. So much so that I'm actually going to go ahead and use that house that I've got to fully heal my party and restore all my spell charges. So we're going to do a lot of running away and trying to throw out spells to take out enemies. Even if I waste a spell eliminating some of the enemies in the pack but not getting all of them, it's okay. It lets me have a little bit more safety as I'm diving through this dungeon. This one I am going to take. These 3 shouldn't have so much HP that they're a problem for me. There we go. 2 Fades does the job. And again, we're leveling up very quickly here. In Final Fantasy 1, the max level is 50. We're already level 10. I'm certainly not going to get anywhere near 50 on this playthrough. I expect my finishing levels will be somewhere around level 30. In the randomizer, we often end up significantly lower level than you would be if you were playing the base game, especially compared to playing the base game casually. The randomization of spells at different levels than where they normally are allows us to do a lot more damage than we otherwise would be able to. Fire 3, Bane, Lit 3, Ice 3, Fade that we've all seen between levels 1 and 4 are normally much higher level spells, and you get much fewer of them playing through in the vanilla game. Okay, there's our canoe, and that canoe is going to allow us to sail over to Crescent Lake and to the Ryukon Desert. So we now actually have a way to go get our airship. So if nothing else, that was already a really good pickup for us. Once we have the airship, we'll be able to explore the world a lot faster. Oh hey, Wappy, thank you for the Twitch Prime subscription. How you doing, man? We are doing a Power Up with Pride marathon submission video, so we're trying to explain what makes Final Fantasy Randomizer a great game, and trying to beat the game quickly. Come on, move, mermaid. There we go. Alright, so we're going to use our exit spell and fully escape the dungeon. And now that we have the canoe, we're going to go get our airship. We're going to get out of here and start sailing around the world. Alright, so level 9 now, picking up some good progress. Just having a boring Sunday? Well, hopefully I can make your Sunday a little bit more entertaining. We are set up with a relatively jet seed here. Alright, so we're going to pick up that Ice 3. What spells does my Red Mage have? He has Fade and Temper. We're also going to pick up Ice 3 for the Red Mage. No we're not, actually. But we are going to pick up Temper, and we're going to pick up Confuse. So the Confuse spell is something I'm just kind of putting in my back pocket. It's not a spell that sees a lot of use, but it does have a very strong use against one of the Fiend Dungeon bosses. It's going to allow us to confuse that boss, as she is actually weak to status magic. And when she is confused, she's going to be spending more time hurting herself than she will be hurting us. So anytime we're not taking damage from a boss, that's good news by me. So definitely going to stick that in our back pocket. Alright, so Northwest Castle Sea Shrine. Yeah, unfortunately, Wappy, it is a little bit of expensive magic, but it's okay. We'll get through it. I really shouldn't be taking this fight, but whatever. It's fine. At this point, Wolves and Gorewolves are not worth anywhere near enough experience points to be a viable source of progress. Alright, so this is the Ryukon Desert. Here we can use our floater to get our airship out of the desert. And we'll stop by Crescent Lake while we're right here. There is another incentive item here. Oh, I should check the armor shop while I'm passing by. We're still on our lookout for pro rings. Unfortunately, they're not here either. So there's a couple more towns that they could be at. But we definitely want to pick those up when we come across them if we have the money for them. Circle of Sages gives us the loot. Okay, so that's one of the 2 items that's required to get through the final dungeon of the game. So that is a required item. So now that we have our airship, we're going to fly around and we're going to check some of these entrances. This is a Cardia treasure area. So we'll take it. There's a couple of free chests here. Silver helmet's going to provide a little bit more absorb for our fighter. We'll be able to take a little bit more hits. And we'll exit to save ourselves a little bit of time. So we'll stop by the Ice Cave and see what's here. The Ice Cave is Titan's Tunnel East, so probably won't play a whole big part in this game. Not a very big deal. I think I stopped by Matoya's Cave, but I forgot to mark down what it was, so I'm going to remind myself. Matoya's Cave was Dwarf Cave, right. Speaking of Dwarf Cave, we'll go stop by the Dwarf Cave and see what is in here. Aha! So we have another of our Fiend dungeons. This is the Mirage Tower, and that leads into the Sky Castle, Floating Fortress. So this is an interesting area. There's a lot of oh goodness, we're not taking a lit 3. Vampires are scary. We know this now. Okay. Unfortunately, they're also runnable, so you know. Okay, good. So Fire 3 is taking them down pretty easily. Oh no, he didn't die, but we got the fade off, so good turn order. Alright. So those vampires could pose a lot of problems as I'm trying to dig through these chests, and that might actually cut me a little bit short. We're also not finding anything in these chests. This is terrible. Oh hey, Hyro, how you doing today? Alright, so checking some more of these chests. Light Axe is a really nice pickup, actually. Not going to be really using it as an actual weapon, but it's going to allow us to cast Harm 2 in battle if we use it. So that's going to give the fighter some AoE options. Particularly against these vampires, that could be pretty good. Yeah, Wappy, level 3 magic was very stacked. Ice 3 and Fade both, as well as Temper and Confuse. There were a lot of good options for us. Oh, and Cure 4, which I have used all of my charges of, so that wasn't very smart. Fortunately, we have some heal potions, so we will just use a couple of those and continue on our merry way. So, despite this being a very dangerous area, and knowing that the vampires have a skill that could very easily kill me very quickly, I am going to go ahead and dig out these chests. The enemies here are just very valuable experience points. They're too good to pass up, really. And there's 10 chests here that are pretty easy to get to. So, we are going to do our best to try and stay alive. And boy, we got just lots of unrunnables. Server, I have over 200 HP, it looks like. Poison Smoke terminated. Just going to make short work of a couple of them. And one more round and we'll take down this last Cerberus. And there we go. It's level 14 now, so we're starting to get a lot more HP under our belts. We're fairly survivable at this point, despite the fact that we don't really have very good equipment. So what do we have here? We've got a house. Silver Hammer is very meh. It's going to allow our white mage to do a little bit of melee damage in combat, but not a particularly good item. That was very much a bust. Copper bracelet is, or bracer is better than our silver is better than our copper. We will go ahead and move this over, even though I don't expect to be doing a lot of melee damage with that white mage. And we have now checked all the chests that we have access to, so we're going to have to come back for that later. So here's Melmid. It's got our level 5 spells. Life 2 and Invis 2. Okay. Those are some very good pickups. Can you learn these? Can learn that. Can't learn Life 2. Might be able to after class change, but I don't remember. Black magic is bad. Rub is a single target instant death, but it has very low odds of landing. Stop is an AoE paralyze. Sleep 2 and Blind are very bad status magics, so not something I'm really looking to pick up right here. No, A-Rub is too expensive. Invis 2 is nice because it's going to raise our whole party's evasion. That's going to be very useful, especially in the late game, for protecting ourselves from big bosses. Here we have those pro rings, so we're definitely going to pick up 4 of them right away. They are not very expensive. And pro ring is better than this silver bracer, so we're going to pick up 1 for the fighter 2. So that's a lot more defense for our characters now. It makes me feel a lot better about digging through more dangerous dungeons. Although we have already seen the 2 most dangerous dungeons, short of the final dungeon, of course. So there's not going to be much more that would be particularly dangerous that I'd have to worry about. Here we got a couple more free chests. And there's a pro ring right away, so could have saved myself a little bit of money by checking that chest first, but oh well. You win some, you lose some. Titan's Tunnel West is Bahamut's Cave, so that is where we can go to upgrade our class once we have the tail. That's going to let our fighter turn into a knight and use the best equipment in the game as far as armor and weapons, as well as provide extra access to spells for all of our mages. Sarda's Cave is Matoya's Cave. We're going to check the Earth Cave, and then the Marsh Cave, then we'll start heading up north. Earth Cave is Titan's Tunnel West. Marsh Cave today is Castle Corneria. So the king is going to give us a incentive item. So he's giving us the chime that's going to allow us to access the vanilla Mirage entrance. So that could be very handy if that ends up being a required location. So at this point, what are we really looking for? So we've got the crown, we've got the chime, so what we really want are more incentives, so we're going to try and find some entrances that have incentives for us real quick. That's Elfland Castle at the grassy Cardia Isle. Sarda's Cave. This is a free incentive for us, so another great location for us to find. What have you got for us? Oh, you have the cube, so that would allow us to actually go through the rest of that sky fortress that we were at. So that's certainly a good point of consideration. There's an incentive waiting for us there. Let's see what is in here. Ice Cave. Do I have warp? I do have warp. Okay. We will go do Ice Cave. There's an incentive location here. This is a somewhat dangerous dungeon. There are a lot of different enemies here, and one of the things about the randomizer that makes it very dangerous is that with so many enemies, the randomizer is shuffling around all of the spells and skills and scripts that all the enemy AI have, and the more enemies that there are in a given area, the more likely it is that something dangerous landed on one of those enemies. So with so many enemies here and in the Marsh Cave, it's very dangerous sometimes to go through. We should be high enough level that it's not going to be a big deal. This fight also should definitely not be a big deal. We have a lot of firepower to deal with undead. Looks like they do have sleep touch, so the red mage is going to be disabled for a round of combat. But not too much HP, so quick fire 3 and the light axe use are going to get the job done. So another undead pack. This one's not very large. The big reason that I took the the one pack and now I'm taking this one is that there are a lot of enemies, and the more enemies there are in combat, the more experience points you're going to get. So it's just a matter of the number of enemies being worth the amount of time and experience. So alright. So we found a Gurpede. Gurpedes are worth a decent amount of experience points. We're going to go ahead and take this fight. Oh, Wappy, you fell asleep while you were here watching? Well, welcome back to the land of the waking. Alright, so this is actually the room with our incentive item here in the ice cave. And so we are going to use warp in a very clever way. What the warp spell allows you to do is go back one floor of a dungeon. So even though we fell down this hole, we can warp back up and get access to this chest that normally requires you to make a second loop through the ice cave for. So it's a very handy trick for us. Opal Bracelet is a great item. It is the strongest armor in the game for body armor for the mages that we've got. So definitely a very nice pickup. Alright, we have another undead pack. We are going to try and get through this pretty quickly. We're going to check just a couple of the chests on this floor of Ice Cave. There's a decent number of chests here. If we could find some good pieces of gear, that would be nice. What I'd really like to find right now is a ribbon. Ribbon is a piece of headgear that has very low absorb, but it provides resistances against every element in the game. So it's a very great piece of gear for keeping your party alive, at least particularly keeping a single character alive. And in this case, if I could keep the White Mage alive, the White Mage knows Life 2, which resurrects a character with full HP. So as long as the White Mage stays alive, she can bring back the rest of the party at the end of combat. So a couple Fire 3s are going to make short work of these enemies here in the Ice Cave. Frost Giants and Frost Wolves aren't too bad for experience points, so we'll take the fight. Again, a couple of Fire 3s, and it looks like Frost Dragons are pretty weak on HP, so that's certainly a very nice option for us. We found a second katana, but we're not running with a thief, so that's not going to be very good for us. Given that this Frost Dragon doesn't have very much HP, I'm not going to waste any spells on it. My Sun Sword is going to do a lot of damage and be able to take it out in just one swing, so not worried about that. Use a couple of heal potions, keep our party topped off. Never know when you're going to run across a dangerous skill or spell. So, these tiles that I'm walking across here are damage tiles. Every time you step across them, you lose 1 HP. A little bit annoying, but not too big of a deal. The trade-off is that anytime you're walking across them, you actually can't get in encounters. So it's actually a fairly nice trade. And in fact, in the Volcano Dungeon, a lot of FFR runners will really put that to good use to minimize the amount of what's called encounter steps that they run across. And what I mean by encounter steps is every time you take a step in a dungeon or on the overworld in this game, there is an RNG table that gets called and determines whether you get into a random battle or not. And there are a couple of cases where the RNG does not advance. So when you're walking across those damage tiles, that's one of them. If you're walking along the bottom wall of a room, so like for instance this room right here, as long as I'm running across this bottom wall, I will be able to run any number of steps without advancing the RNG table and never get into any random battles. That also happens when you walk into a trap tile. So this is a trap tile. It has a forced encounter that we are going to take. We're going to test this eye and see see what kind of HP it's got. The eye is worth a lot of experience points. Unfortunately, it looks like it might have a little bit more HP than we want to deal with. But we've got some fade charges, and we're at the end of this dungeon anyway, so I'm not particularly worried about using some of those charges. definitely has more than I want it to have. But that's okay. We use up just a couple of these charges, and then we'll move on. So, here I'm intentionally taking these fights because I just want to gain a couple of extra levels, be a little bit safer. We're level 18 now, 17, 18, yeah, that seems like plenty. So we'll move on now. So that is it for the ice cave for us. So Curdy Swamp was the ice cave, we had finished that. There's one more entrance that could lead to something here. We have the Marsh Cave. This is also an incentive location, so we will quickly dive this dungeon and get our incentive chest. So Marsh Cave is another dungeon that players don't like to dive into. It has a lot of enemies, just like the Ice Cave, and normally you would have to come to the Marsh Cave very early in the game. But in this case, with the entrances randomized, that's not the case. Wappy asks, are there any loose items? And this particular flag set for this marathon submission, there are no loose items, just to accelerate the game. This is just to make the run a bit faster and try and progress through and make it marathon safe. Alright, so we got the ruby from Marsh Cave. Ruby's not a particularly great item for us. It allows us to feed the Titan in the Titan's tunnel and get access to a couple more chests. Most likely, well actually it's definitely not going to be required because we don't have any loose items. We're still on the lookout for Astos to turn in this crab crown to, and see what key item that's going to give us. The slab is interesting. We could go turn that into to Dr. Un at Melmond. Let's go do that, in fact. We'll go talk to Dr. Un, we'll rest up at the Melmond Inn, and get ourselves back to full HP, and then we'll go over to the village of Lethane and see if they have a good key item for us. So, Dr. Un is very excited to translate the riddle of the Lefinish and explain to us how to communicate with them. We will gladly accept this gift. So we've actually got a lot of our entrances checked at this point. We haven't been to the waterfall, we haven't been to the dungeon in Onrak. We haven't been to Ordeals, and we haven't been to Mirage. But that's really not very many locations, so the seed's progressing pretty quickly. So we really just need to find the Mystic Key and the Rod. And we need to figure out which of our entrances leads to Temple of Fiends and which of our entrances leads to the Earth Cave. And at that point, we'll have enough to beat the game. Alright, Wappy, thanks for stopping by. Have a good rest, man. Alright, so what do we have? We have the tail. Okay, well that's going to let us promote our characters, so... useful, not necessarily what we were looking for, but useful. So again, just trying to clear through these enemies quickly. This fight isn't going to be worth a particularly large amount of experience points at this point, but it's still useful. We'll still take level ups when we can. Oh. We have an unrunnable encounter here, so we have to fight this one. Alright, so where are we going to go next? We've still got a couple of entrances to check, and we are right next to the Mirage Tower. So I think that's going to be our next check. We're going to see what is there. At this point, we actually know it's going to be either the waterfall, it could be the Earth Cave, the Temple of Fiends, or the... There's one more left. Temple of Fiends, Earth Cave, waterfall, or... Oh, the Northwest Castle, which would have Astos for us. So, at this point, we actually know... Oh wait, we actually know where Earth Cave is. We need to know where Volcano is, not Earth Cave. So regardless of what the entrance is, we're going to go do the dungeon at this point. Because we're quickly running out of locations that are going to be duds for us. And boy, these giants are just not cooperating. They really just want to get in my way. Alright, we're going to do a hard reset and change our RNG values. I haven't really talked about encounter manipulation that much, or really done that much with encounter manipulation this seed. Some seeds it plays into it a lot more, but there are essentially two different kinds of resets that you can do in Final Fantasy 1, and that's what's referred to as either a hard reset or a soft reset. And a hard reset will reset the RNG table back to what it would be when you first turn the console on. So if you were playing on an actual console and you shut the game off and then turned it back on, it always initializes to a given RNG value to determine how many steps there are until an encounter, what encounters you will get on that table, and that sort of thing. So if you do a hard reset, it resets back to that initial value. And if you do a soft reset, it will take you back to the game title screen without resetting that initial value. So what that allows us to do is, since I know there's a large number of encounters early in the encounter table, I can go ahead and do a hard reset to reset the initial encounter values, and then I can burn off a couple of encounter tables, a couple of encounters. And what I mean by burn off is intentionally take some steps, walk, get into an encounter, and then initiate a soft reset. That'll take us back to the title screen, but the encounter value has already passed, so the next time I would take a step, I would instead not get into an encounter. And by doing that a couple of times, you can get yourself onto a good run. As you see, we're going through this dungeon and not getting very many encounters. Part of that is also the large number of lava tiles that I'm using here to walk along and not take steps. But when I am taking encounter steps, you can see that I'm not getting into these encounters, which is very handy. Alright, so... I have not been terribly smart with my preparation for this. I should have really used a house before I came in here to restore my spell charges. But I have just enough healing items to get myself through this dungeon. So we're going to take a quick fight here. And Ekmas are actually pretty weak. I really want to see if that HP is low enough that I can do it with without getting a crit. And boy, that's pretty nice. Okay. I don't particularly need the experience points, so I'm not really going to focus on doing a grind, but I'm going to take the fights as they come up. So we go, level 21 now. So we're getting a good number of levels under our belt. This is pretty safe for the end game. We still have a couple of dungeons that are going to give us a lot of experience points as we're continuing on. So we should be in really good shape for the end of the game now. So this chest here is another one of our incentive chests, and it has the crystal for us. That's a pretty good pickup. So Mirage was Volcano. We've got this done. This game is just throwing some experience points at me. I'm very happy to oblige and take the fights, though. Alright. So we're finally going to get our first look at one of the fiends. These are the required enemies that are going to restore the power of the orbs. So anytime you see one of these big orbs here, you talk to it and it initiates a boss fight. We are going to go ahead and buff up our fighter with the fast spell. That'll give him twice the normal amount of attacks when he is swinging in combat. We're going to use the wall spell to increase his resistances, make him safer from spells and skills. And we're going to throw out the fade spell to do some extra damage. We will continue to wall up our people, keep our people safe. And we're going to throw out the confuse spell. We'll see if we can confuse Carrie and prevent her from hurting us. Oh, we actually did. Good news. So now this fight is basically free. She doesn't have a lot of HP anyway, but if that fight had progressed further, she then would not have been able to use her rounds of combat to actually attack us. She would have been attacking herself until she heals that status effect. So, so knowing enemy weaknesses in Final Fantasy 1, especially the randomizer, really pays off. It allows you to take some fights that you would otherwise have much more difficulty with by understanding what spells and skills to use in different situations. So we're going to stop by Gaia Wall right here. We're going to check what our items for sale are. We really need some more camping gear and heal potions. We have heal potions here, so this is good. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to buy houses here, so that's a little bit sad, but it's okay. It's not too big a deal. Alright, so there we go. Now we can't carry any more heal potions. We'll use one more just so we can actually max out on our amount of heal potions that we can carry at a time. And then we will go rest at the end and restore our skill and spell, our spell charges. Okay, so we've got the crystal, we've got the crown, we've got the tail. So I really want to stop by Bahamut and Matoya's cave. And they're right next to each other, so let's go do that. So talking to Bahamut's going to allow us to class change and equip better gear, as well as learn more and stronger spells. Well, normally stronger spells, but in this case, what is at the higher levels is randomized, so the spells are in fact generally going to be a little bit weaker than they would otherwise. Defense is a really nice pickup. It is going to allow our fighter to use that item in battle to be able to add 80 evasion to them. 80 evasion is approximately a third of the max evade that a character can have. So by using that 2 or 3 times, it allows the fighter to be very safe in battle. Hi, Speed 12. Thank you for following. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, we are getting ready for the Power Up with Pride Marathon. This is our submission video where we're demonstrating Final Fantasy I Randomizer. Welcome. Alright, so we now have our class change. Stats of defense versus Sunsword. So Sunsword is 52 damage, 103 hit percent, 50 damage, 108 hit percent. That's worthwhile enough to trade off. The Sunsword will do a lot more damage than the Saber was doing for our. Oh, we have the Excalibur. That is clearly the right option here. All right, cool. Alright, so that takes care of our class change, that takes care of turning in the crown, and we have a couple more places to go, so let's go ahead and head up to the waterfall. The waterfall is, well, we know it's going to be either Northwest Castle or the Vanilla Waterfall or the Temple of Fiends. We still need to locate that final dungeon. Temple of Fiends being that final dungeon. So he says, I've always loved this game, beat it a few times, but never tried anything like this. The randomizer is a ton of fun. I definitely recommend checking it out if you love the vanilla game. It breathes a whole new life into the game. It's definitely something I was very, very excited to find and learn about. I've been super happy since joining the community and learning this game and playing it. Alright, so we have the rod now. So at this point we have all of the key items to get us through the game except for the Mystic Key. And if the Temple of Fiends is located in the Onrak dungeon, we will need the Oxyale. So potentially one more key item that we'll need. But at this point, I think we're going to go ahead and dive through the Fiend Dungeons, since the Fiend Dungeons have a couple of incentive items for us. Oh, we're getting zapped by Caribs. That is not something we want in our life. So Zap, again, that's that instant death AoE spell, and it's Time Elemental, so it's not resisted by very many things, so it was a little bit painful. Are the magic spells still bugged, or do you play a fixed version? The randomizer has a bunch of bug fixes, so all of the bugs in the vanilla game, like Temper not working and Saber not working, those are all fixed in the randomizer. They accurately increase either attack or decrease evade or whatever the particular spell was supposed to do. They have, in fact, all been fixed. Alright, so since we lost 2 of our party members, we're going to get them back. Stop by the clinic to do so. We have houses here. We do not have houses here. There wasn't any particularly good white magic at level 1 for our knight to learn, but level 2 and level 3 have some good spells. So let's stop by Provoca and Elfland. So we'll get Wall and Exit for our knight. We're also going to go ahead and pick up X for just in case we decide to get cheeky and try and strip some enemy resistances. And we'll go pick up, I think we can pick up Cure 4 for our knight and our red wizard now. Not 100% sure, but I believe that is the case. And if so, that's going to be really good news. Cure 4 on the knight, again, it fully heals the target that you cast it on, so that's a really good pickup. We're also going to pick up Fade for our knight, give him a very strong AoE option. Nope, Cure 4 is in the heal slot, and that's right, you can't learn that on either the red wizard or the knight. That is only a white mage spell. I guess that's something else I haven't really talked about is spell permissions. In the randomizer, spell permissions are tied to a particular spell slot. So what do I mean by that? When you visit a magic shop, for instance in the Corneria shop, level 1 has Cure, and then Harm, and then Fog and Ruse. And normally the White Mage can learn any of those 4 spells. A Red Mage can learn Cure and Fog. A Red Wizard can learn Cure, Fog, and Ruse. And a Knight can learn Cure, Fog, and Ruse. So whatever ends up landing in those spell slots, that is what you can learn on a character. So for instance, say Fade lands on a slot that a Knight can normally learn. So like Fade landed on Cure 2. Normally the Knight and the Red Wizard and Red Mage can all learn that. So they are able to learn those spells. So now we have found Temple of Fiends. I actually didn't really mean to come here, but we did. I was going to go do my my checks of the Earth Cave and Sky Palace and Sea Shrine, but I got to talking and forgot. But that's okay, because we now know where Temple of Fiends is. So for deals is Temple of Fiends, and we now know that... Well, we don't know what the Waterfall or On-Record Dungeon are, because I forgot to stop by them. Corneria Castle was Marsh Cave, so let's go see what the princess has for us, and then we'll go hit up the Fiend Dungeons. Alright, TNT, that's going to allow us to turn in that to the dwarves. I did forget to pick up more houses, but that's okay. Okay, so... Elfland Castle was Earth Cave, so let's go do that. That'll take us no time at all to blaze through. Alright, so Earth Cave is not a particularly interesting dungeon for the randomizer. There's a lot of really spread out chests, and a lot of runners really prefer putting off the Earth Cave until later when they don't have to check any of the chests, and they can go mode those dungeons. What I mean by go mode is like ignore trying to explore in the area, just focus on clearing through the dungeon as quickly as possible. I think there's all of 1, maybe 2 chests that I'll pick up here in the Earth Cave as a what's considered a greed chest, as in a chest that you can check if you're still kind of looking for maybe an item or two to bolster your party. But otherwise don't really need the equipment. At this point our party is pretty strong. I have no doubt that I could go through the end game with the gear that I've got and be able to finish the final dungeon. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time digging out chests. We're just going to see what's on our way and not stop for things that are going to just spend a bunch of time. In Final Fantasy Randomizer, particularly during races, you always have to evaluate the cost of a decision in terms of time. You know, if I was racing this right now, and I was digging through Earth Cave, it could easily cost me an extra 5 minutes trying to dig out all the chests here in Earth Cave, because they're all so spread out. So I have to determine, is the thing I need, or things that could be useful, worth the time investment of that 5 minutes, because anytime you're giving away time to your opponent, you need to be getting something back for that time investment to really pay off. So here we've got the Vampire. Vampire's a mini-boss in Earth Cave who really does not tend to matter in Randomizer. He doesn't have enough HP to really be a roadblock, and by the time we come in here, we're very high level compared to the Vampire. And we get the Canoe, which is a very, very much so a bust. That is not something we were looking for. At this point, we really just need the Mystic Key. That's the only thing that we want to break for. So we're just kind of making our way through these dungeons And a lot of dungeon routing really is just practice and experience. So Earth Cave has a lot of windy paths, but I've run this enough that it's like the back of my hand. I know exactly which way I'm going, and just gonna blaze right through it. And 365 damage to Lich. He rolled a little bit low on HP, and that was enough to kill him. So that is a speed bump down. So Northwest Castle was Sea Shrine, Dwarf Cave was Mirage Tower. We're going to hit up the Mirage Tower first. Because there is still a key item for us to find here in the Sky Palace, whereas we already got our incentive item out of the Mermaid Chest and Sea Shrine. So hopefully the chest that is here will give us the Mystic Key, and we'll be able to move on and beat the game after we finish up these last couple of Fiend dungeons. So here we got some more of those vampires. In packs of 4, they're going to be a bit more dangerous. We did learn earlier that they have Lightning 3, and Lit 3 does a pretty significant amount of damage if you don't have resistance to it. And in this case, I really don't have resistances for many of my party or many elements. So that's definitely something that's going to be something that I'm going to have to be a little bit cautious of. So a Fade and an Ice 3 makes short work of the Cerbri. We're going to have the Blue Dragon Trap Tile right here. Fortunately today he's runnable. Not really interested in fighting him. There are still a fair number of items that would help me if I found them. We don't have the Power Gauntlet. We don't have any ribbons. So that's enough for me to take a minor detour and check these 5 chests right here. Gurnagas are worth a pretty decent amount of experience points, and with the Excalibur, my Knight's going to be doing a lot of damage. So I will go ahead and take the Gurnaga out while we're here. Yeah, White Mage is actually swinging in for a decent amount of damage now. Well, decent meaning double digits, not 1 damage per hit, so don't assume that that's actually good damage. 40 is nothing compared to that 500 that the Knight's doing. Oxio. Well, at this point it's looking like Oxio's probably going to be required. So that's fine. I'm gonna check these 4 chests over here. Again, just trying to find something decent for us. The Vorpal's interesting. It's a high critical weapon. It has about a 30% chance to crit, and criticals do a lot of damage. They do. Anytime you're attacking in the Final Fantasy I mechanics, you're going to swing for an amount of damage that's like 1 to 2 times your damage value compared to their absorb value. The interesting part about a critical hit is that criticals will do essentially an extra roll worth of damage, so that 1 to 2 damage, except that in this case it's completely mitigating absorb. So getting a critical hit will allow you to do essentially a normal hit's worth of damage, despite the fact that an enemy might have a lot of absorb. So it's very useful when you have a lot of buffs. And in this case, we have fast, we have 2 temper casters, so I could really stack on the buffs very quickly on a Vorpal user. So I will hang on to that and likely be using it going into the end game. Slimes are worth a decent amount of experience points, and they're weak to fire. I have a lot of fire charges, so I'm not particularly worried about using some here. Unfortunately, looks like they have stun touch, so putting my Red Mage out of commission, but not enough HP to survive the Fire 3. So good news for us. And this is the Bridge of Destiny, as people call it. This is the long bridge to the Air Fiend Tiemet, and it normally has a random encounter that you can run across, who's called Warmech. And, ooh, Lightning 3 again. That's not pleasant. Warmech is the most dangerous random encounter. Oh, this is bad. Oh, that's really bad, actually. Well. Interesting. Can I actually do this? I feel like the answer is probably not, but we're going to give it a try because we're on the last floor of the dungeon. So... Alright, we're going to swap out the Excalibur for that Vorpal Sword because it's got the crit ability. And... that thing I said about Warmech being the most dangerous random encounter, well, in this particular flag set that I've created for this submission, Warmech is a required fight. So talking to this NPC engages Warmech, and I have to kill him in order to be able to complete this dungeon. Warmech has a lot of very dangerous skills. He is tied in with the final boss skill pool in Final Fantasy Randomizer, so he has skills like Swirl and Nuclear and a lot of very dangerous things. And it looks like he is very skill-happy, and that's really bad for us. Oh good, physical attacks. That's exactly what I want to see you do. Please physical attack me more. No, please don't use Ink, because that means you're going to do Nuclear next. Okay, so we know Warmech's 4 skills. That's some bad news for us. Unfortunately, there's not really a whole lot different that I can do. I just got some bad luck with those R-Hydras casting Lit 3 on me. So it's a bit annoying, but not a whole lot I can really do about it. Just gotta try and press on and do it again. Getting pretty annoyed by this Lit 3. I really wish I had some resistances to be able to do something about it. It's a real pain in my butt that I don't have any. And particularly annoying that the White Mage died, because as long as the White Mage would have survived, I could have just revived the whole party. But with the White Mage going down, that left me in a bad position. That's okay. Part of Final Fantasy Randomizer's adaptation, and certainly all we can do is move forward and try and do better. So, I'm not particularly happy about running across these unrunnable Cerberus. I really want to be conserving my spell charges. Level 3 shares a charge with Cure 4 and with Temper, and both of those are going to be very important going into that Warmech fight. Especially now that we know he is very skill-happy. Not particularly interested in this fight. We really just want to move on and get on with our lives. This Chimera's just blocking our way and not letting us run. It's rather rude. There we go. There. Well, again, this comes back to what I was saying much earlier, in that enemies have dangerous skills and spells. And we ran across the Lit 3, and that was a bad time for us. So you have to be mindful. It's important to keep your party full on HP, especially when you don't know what you could be running across. So we're going to be a little bit more cognizant of that this time, and we're going to get into more unrunnable fights. Everybody loves unrunnables. Spoiler alert, not everybody loves unrunnables. In fact, we really don't love unrunnables. That's okay, we will get there. We're still on fairly good pace. I estimate these particular flags that I've cooked up, flags referring to what options are turned on and off in the randomizer, and I almost forgot to go back and get my potentially required item in this oxtail. But the settings of the randomizer that I've got turned on, I expect this run to take within about an hour and 40 minutes. I would say an hour 30, hour 20 would be very good pace, but certainly it could take upwards of an hour 40. I would not expect it to take more than that, unless RNG is particularly bad and really plays against me. Okay, well, we know our hydras are dangerous, so we're not going to bother running away. We're going to just try and get them out of here, but not before they get the lit 3s off. Alright, fortunately more of them are punching this time around. There's another lit 3. But everybody did survive it, so that's good news. I really wish I had more Cure 4 charges. Really wish that it wasn't sharing a level with Fade. Your best offense and your best healing on the same level is a really bad time. Bit of a double-edged sword, because anytime you want to go on more of the offensive, you have to weigh the option of not having those healing spells. Alright, so we're healed back up. Hopefully we don't run into any more our hydras. Again, we're going to equip that Vorpal Sword and try and rely on having the critical hits. So we're going to use our defense. We're going to cast fast. That's going to give him twice the normal of attacks in battle. Well, we actually know that Wormek does not have any elemental skills. We haven't seen any spells out of him, but no elemental skills at least. Or, you know, just gonna punch my red mage for 450 damage. That's cool. That feels great. Well, that was quite rude. Alright, so this is gonna get our fighter up to 6 evade stacks, so he's gonna be capped out on evade. The swirl comes out, so that's gonna do a lot of damage. The big thing is that we have to keep the white mage alive. It's going to do a lot of damage. The skills and spells are going to do a lot of damage. We're going to temper, we're going to swing in and try and do as much damage as possible. 4 hits for 330 is pretty decent. Hopefully we'll get a couple of tempers off before the black mage dies. Oh, there we go. Wormek actually didn't have very many HP. Okay, so we survived. Life 2 will bring that red mage right back into the fray. And we'll throw out some heal potions for our characters that stayed fairly healthy. So there we go. Getting to Wormek with the full party alive made a huge difference. Well, I probably could have switched back to using the Excalibur for this fight. Vorpal has pretty low base damage, so the fact that it has those criticals means that you really have to start stacking on some buffs for it to do really good damage. Fortunately, we do have a good number of buffs, so we will be able to do some decent damage. Even with just Fast and Temper, 7 swings for 500 damage is way better than the last round. Tiamat is actually susceptible, actually weak to the Poison Stone element, so Bane and Brack are both instant kill spells that have that element, and they can land and instant kill Tiamat. technically there's always a 3 in 256 chance that those spells will land on any enemy, even if they would normally be completely resistant against it. But they actually have about a 20% chance of landing on Tiamat 1 and Kraken 1 as well, in fact. Kraken is not weak to those elements, however, Kraken does not resist those elements, meaning that they can be used to do instant kill, and with the lower magic defense of Kraken compared to Tiamat, they actually have a decent odds of landing. Okay, so we have one more Fiend dungeon to do. I'm going to burn off a couple of these encounters. Oh, it was only 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So that's a little bit of encounter manipulation. I did a hard reset to go back to the initial RNG state. Knew that there were 3 encounters fairly quickly off a power cycle. Took those and then started running into the dungeon. Oh yeah, we actually learned earlier that gray sharks have a bit higher HP than we want to deal with, so we're going to just avoid them. Our levels are pretty good for the enemy scaling that we've got. 50 to 200% isn't very high scaling. The range of scaling that you can do in the randomizer, you can leave things at their base stats, just normal 100% vanilla values, or you could turn the scaling up all the way to 20% to 500%, and you'd start seeing some very ridiculous stats as you go. I would say about 300% and beyond. 200% is pretty standard for a tournament setting. Not terribly bad. So, we've actually made really quick work of the Sea Shrine here. We are all the way on to Kraken's floor already. So we have just a little bit further to go, and we will be able to take out the Fiend of Water, and that will be our 4 Fiends, and that will be our 4th orb lit. Just trying to run away from these fights. I'm feeling very confident on my levels. I don't particularly need more experience points. At this point, I'm just throwing away the Lit 3 on these enemies to be able to clear them out as quickly as possible. If I run away first turn, great. If I don't run away first turn and I kill them, that's also fine. Similar strategy here with this Gur Shark. And I actually want to switch back to that Excalibur. Excalibur does a lot better base damage, unbuffed, than the Vorpal does. So if I'm not focused on buffing, then Excalibur is going to be the preferential way to go. If I am going to be buffing, the Vorpal is going to be better. Alright, so here we're going to attack with the fighter. We're going to throw out our Fade charges with our red and white mage for a pure offensive strategy, and just try and take Kraken down as fast as possible. Kraken is known for doing a lot of damage, particularly a lot of physical damage. He has a lot of hits in the base game, and can do a lot of damage when he gets those 8 hits and swings in. Blaze and Poison, damage Poison coming out. Both of those are very strong AoE options that are really causing my party some nuisance, but we're able to get through the fight. And Cure 4 is going to quickly do the job and get our characters back up on their feet. Okay, so the Dwarf Cave, where we turn the TNT in, is over in Matoya's Cave. So we're going to head back over there. And we're going to hopefully get the Mystic Key. Again, at this point, I really just need the Mystic Key, and then we can go into the final dungeon. Adamant. Well, that's fine. That is the item that you turn into the blacksmith, and the Dwarven blacksmith is also in Dwarf Caves, so we'll just walk up here, and we'll take our Mazmune. Mazmune is really good. It is equipable by any class, and has the highest base stats in the game, so normally a character like the White Mage, 23 damage, 37 hit percent, that's very weak. The second you put on a Mazmune, 67 damage and 82 hit percent is pretty good. That's pretty comparable damage to the Knight, but lower hit percent. And that's really strong, so it's going to give us 3 decent melee options in combat. We will take that. We did not find the Mystic Key. There are a couple more entrances we can go into. We have Northwest Castle and Waterfall to find, and those are going to be up in either the Waterfall or the Anorak Dungeon. So hopefully we will get our Mystic Key very soon. So Oxyale is the newest item in our inventory, so we're going to check that one first. I think at this point there's not really any, no, there's definitely not any Zonk items that we can find, so I think that this has to be the Mystic Key in this dungeon. So a bit unfortunate that we had to essentially go to every dungeon, but that's okay. Not too big a deal. And we got a first strike on these enemies, so we're able to just quickly jet out of here. Oh, we got the bottle. That's something we haven't turned in yet. We're probably going to have a long number of fetch quests here. Boy, these chests are just nothing. I think I've already done the waterfall. This was Northwest Castle, right? It was, and I've already defeated Astos. I did. Okay. So nothing left now except to follow the dungeon that we've got, or the key items that we've got. So this bottle, I think, is going to turn into the herb, because I don't think we've seen the herb yet. So bottle into herb into Mystic Key, I think, is our final progression for key items. So we will go talk to the fairy in the well. We're pretty low on healing potions, so we're going to stock up before we're going into the final dungeon. A lot of Final Fantasy Randomizer is really knowing what you can and cannot take, preparing ahead, having a game plan going into things. Those are the kind of things that you do to set yourself up to have a strong advantage and be able to take on the more difficult areas of the game. So there's our herb as predicted, so now we need to go to the grassy Cardia Island. And this should be our Mystic Key. Alright, here we go. So we now have the loot, we have the Mystic Key. Those are both the items that we need to be able to go through the final dungeon. So we will head on over to the Castle Ordeal's entrance, where Temple of Fiends lies. Let's go ahead and save just to make sure we don't lose any progress in case the unthinkable happens. So, this Temple of Fiends dive is going to be a bit precarious. I don't have any ribbons, and ribbons are probably the most important item to guaranteeing safety in the end game. Ribbons provide protection against every element in the game, and equipping one on a character makes a run much, much safer. Additionally, I only have one Life 2 caster, so this is a bit of a precarious situation, but we're going to do our best. So here, I'm just burning off all the rest of the camping gear that I have in my inventory. What that's going to do is it's going to line my heal potions up in the bottom slot, so now I can go ahead and just press up on the menu to get into it. So there we go, we're going to burn off our 3 encounters. We're going to head on into Temple of Fiends. I assume you're playing on a PC and using a keyboard for controls. I am playing on PC. I actually am using a off-brand, well, I'm using a Logitech Xbox 360 controller. Obviously it's not actually an Xbox 360 controller, but it's got the same kind of button mappings, but I am playing on a controller on my PC. These gas dragons are really tempting me. Gas dragons are a great source of experience points. Phantom is runnable, so we're going to swing with our fighter and try and run away. Did not do great damage on the swing. We are going to check these last 2 chests, see if we can't find a ribbon. Unfortunately, we didn't. And at this point, we're going to just swap into using the Masmune. It's going to do better damage than our Excal is. We really only need to prioritize one melee character, since it's better in Final Fantasy to stack your buffs onto a single character than it is to try and spread them out. So we are going to just prioritize having the fighter swing in for massive amounts of melee damage, and the other characters are going to focus on buffing or clearing groups of enemies. This is a really good fight. There is a lot of experience points to be had here, and I have a lot of charges of Fire 3, so I'm going to go ahead and blow off a couple of charges of Fire 3 and take the experience points from this Medusa pack, especially given that I got a first strike. That doesn't allow them to attack back on the first turn, so that's a very safe fight to be able to just take some extra experience along the way. Here we've got Lich. Lich is very much not a threat. It's not really worth buffing or using my resources here, so I'm just going to throw out some basic spells. Fire 3 and Harm 4, I'm going to do some decent damage to him. And Fighter Swing for 400 to 500 damage is more than enough to take him out. Next is our Fire Floor. There's a lot of large packs of enemies here. Mostly all revisits of things that we saw on the volcano. So not anything we're particularly looking to fight right now. We really just want to save resources, run away from fights, save our healing potions, and try and progress onward to kill the fiends. So next on our list of fights is Carrie. Carrie can be dangerous. Carrie is not always dangerous though. So this time around we are going to do a similar strategy. We are going to go ahead and fast, and we're going to throw out a temper charge. So we're going to buff our knight as much as possible. We're going to let him do a bunch of damage. And you can see he's already swinging for 600 damage. In the base game, the Carry 2 Revisited fight has about 600 HP, so one more swing from the fighter, and this should be a finished fight. Big damage, got some nice critical hits in there. And now we have to be kind of picky. So Cure 4 would save a lot of time on healing up all these characters. However, Cure 4 is a very important resource in battle, because being able to restore a character's HP to full in battle is very, very powerful. So we really want to try and save those Cure 4 charges as much as possible. So we're going to burn up a decent number of those heal pots. Up next we've got Kraken 2. Kraken 2 is probably the scariest of the Fiend Revisit fights. He does a lot of damage. We're going to move our fighter to the very back ranks and try and keep him protected. And we are going to hope that we can get off a fast spell before the fighter goes, before the fighter dies. We're going to use Wall on our White Mage because we want to make sure that the White Mage is surviving this. There we see, 900 damage from a physical hit. That's the kind of damage that I was talking about and how Kraken is very scary. Going to Invis 2. We're going to wall up the Knight. We're going to swing in with the fighter again now that he's fasted. And there's a whole bunch more damage now. Hopefully we can take down Kraken in this swing. Not enough. One more. Still not enough. Okay. Fortunately, we've got Wall on our characters, so we're protected from the AoE elements. We are continuing to raise our evasion with the white shirt, and hopefully... There we go. Now he's dead. Alright. Life 2, gonna bring those characters right back into the action. Move our knight back to the front of the party to resume his tanking duties. Sometimes in the final dungeon, you have to just protect the character that you know is going to be the one to carry you through the battle. And that was why I moved the fighter to the back rank, even though the mages up front were much, much squishier than the knight would be. It's important to make sure I can survive and kill the fight to be able to move on. I can always revive the mages after the battle, so... I'm going to do a very similar strategy here. Again, we're keeping the important people in the back of the party. The fighter and the white mage are the ones that really need to survive this. So we're going to temper, we're going to fast, we're going to white shirt, and we're going to swing in. Okay, it looks like Tiamat actually doesn't have a whole lot of resists, or I got some lucky crits. So that's going to be pretty nice for us finishing this fight. Shouldn't take too long here. I'm going to keep throwing up the tempers. The white shirt's going to continue raising our evasion. 10 hits for 500, and Tiamat 2 is already down. That's very nice. So at this point, once we get through this stairway, we are on our way to the final boss. So this is Chaos. And he has some lovely story to tell us about how he sent himself back in the time loop. And this time around, we're going to stick the... no, we're going to keep the white mage in the back. We want to be able to use those Cure 4s. So, again, temper, fast. This time we really want to make sure that we're safe, so we're going to use the defense sword. We're going to use the white shirt. We're going to raise our evasion. Going to wall the knight, keep him protected from the elements. We don't want to take a stray crack or a zap or anything like that, so we want to do everything we can to keep that knight alive. Speaking of zap. Alright, now we hold A and we pray, basically. 7 hits for 900. This shouldn't take too long, actually, so this should be pretty good. And there we go. 1 hour, 38 minutes, 33 seconds, and Chaos is down. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you really enjoy this. Please consider Final Fantasy Randomizer for the Power Up with Pride Marathon, and I will be submitting 2 other formats. This is was a light entrance shuffle. I will also be submitting videos for Chaos Rush format and a Chaos Shuffle format where basically everything is going to be randomized and things will be a lot crazier. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy it. Alright, chat, we did it. We beat the game. No, Nicolette, that was actually not throw a ribbon. I didn't have any ribbon.